All right. Super Bowl 56. You can see I'm excited. Chances are, folks, if you're watching this is probably the 45th Super Bowl preview you've watched in the last 10 days. But you know what? There's only one with these three guys, I hope. Drew Dinsick is live from Radio Row in downtown LA. Good to see you, sir. You're the first one in there, bright and early on Wednesday morning, getting in ahead of the rest of the pack. Rob Pizzola is taking a break from NHL to talk the Super Bowl. It's just a Super Bowl, Rob. We'll get through it. It'll be fine. And Fabian Sommer is delighted that the National Football League, is returning to his homeland, Deutschland. It's good to see in Munich in 2022, the Allianz Arena. Sommer, I'll be there. I'll see you down there. And I presume our buddy Greco will be up from Italy as well. So we'll get something on there as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he'll be there. He will be there. He'll drive early that day. It'll be good. Guys, if you're watching us now live on YouTube, obviously, look, we're going to cover the game briefly at the start. I don't know if there's a major amount of edges in terms of money line total and the point spread, but we will talk a lot of props. We're only going to get through so many, of course. No fun props, no Gatorade, national anthem, any of that crap. We'll get through the good stuff. Give us a few questions if you have a few queries. Let's have a look at the game itself, and let's have a look at the current lines at matchbook.com. Obviously, look, the Rams opened here at 3.5. That was quickly bet out to 4.5. It's pretty solid there, and it should stay there. But on the money line currently, you can back the Rams at 1.53. The Cincinnati Bengals at 2.84. The Bengals getting a 4.5-point start at 1.95. If you fancy the Rams to cover the 4.5, you can back it at 2.0. 48.5 is the total. Rob Pizzola, you look at this game, and we could come at it from different angles. I think the main one, and this is one that's probably going to be chatted about ad nauseum elsewhere, the main matchup for me is the Rams defensive line against that Cincinnati O-line. And if it's anything like we got in Tennessee, there was obviously improvements against Kansas City. It could be a long night for Cincinnati.
Yeah, I would say on both sides of the ball, the line of scrimmage is probably the Rams side where they're going to dominate. You look at past Super Bowls or teams that have excelled in the history of the NFL. These are teams that tend to dominate on the line of scrimmage. And the Cincinnati Bengals are a team that doesn't fit that mold. So it's very weird for me to see them here, especially when you consider the path that they took to get to the Super Bowl, where all three playoff games that they played, they were outgained in yards per play. They lost the net yards per play battle in every single one of those games, yet they are still here, which, you kind of have to take a step back and ask yourself, is there some sort of intangible that I'm missing with this team? Is there something that I'm not accounting for? Is Joe Burrow maybe as great as people think he currently is right now, which I kind of disagree with. I think Burrow is going to be a great quarterback, but I think he's a little bit overvalued or overrated in people's eyes right now. And I'm just kind of struggling to come up with a scenario in which I think the Bengals match up well with the Rams or can, push the Rams around in any capacity. And I think this is not a great matchup for them overall. Now, with that said, we have seen them force a lot of turnovers in the postseason. Obviously, the Titans game comes to mind where Burrow was sacked 9 times and they forced 3 interceptions from Ryan Tannehill. Matt Stafford does have a penchant to turn the ball over, so maybe they can create a couple of extra possessions, and that's enough for them to overcome the talent discrepancy, I would say, on especially at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Obviously, skill players, we know that the Bengals have them. So if Burrow does have time, he can get it out. He can get it to his receivers, but that's been a problem all year. He hasn't had time all season long. It's not like this is something that just manifested itself in the playoffs. The Bengals pass protection has been one of the league's worst, and the Los Angeles Rams have the number 1 pass rush win rate in the entire league. People often point to the amount of pressures that they get, and it's like, wow, they actually are not that high in terms of their pressure rate relative to other teams, which is true, but they also don't send a ton of players after the quarterback a lot as well. So that contributes to their ability to generate pressure. All in all, I think the number in this game is right. I mean, obviously, we're Super Bowl week now. These tend to get bet into place. It's very difficult to find value. My concern with backing the Rams, which is the side that I would back if I had to choose one, is that we get a very similar situation to what we saw against the Bucks. Not necessarily a blowout lead like that, but they have the ability to let an opponent back into the game because they get very conservative with the lead. That's why I wouldn't necessarily want to be laying 4.5 points. But at a money line price of 1.5 or minus 200 for the North American viewers, I think that's where we start to get close to, okay, I think the Rams are playable. I think there is enough of a discrepancy between these two teams. That's me not accounting for any home field advantage at all, which I'm not doing here. But I think there could potentially be an argument that there should be at least some. Just following the Super Bowl last year in which the Bucs won, Rob Gronkowski right after the game said it was a huge edge for them to be playing at home. Part of the reason why had nothing to do with the fans. It was just preparation for the game and being very comfortable in the environment that they were playing in, because they were, consistently playing there, sleeping in their own beds, whatever. So, to me, it's the NFL. Anything can happen. I'm not guaranteeing win for the Rams here. It just seems like a very disadvantageous matchup for the Cincinnati Bengals. They've overcome that a lot this year. I'm kind of surprised that they're in this game. Doesn't mean they can't win, but I do think LA is a pretty, complete football team relative to what we see from Cincinnati.
Yeah, Drew, do you want to pick it up from there? I mean, there are so many matchup advantages for the Rams, and if it looks like a Rams cover, smells like one and talks like one, but sometimes you can always lead you down a road that it's too obvious.
I appreciate that you guys are desperately trying to mush my Rams. I don't take any offense. I understand, it's good content to really try to build me up that the Rams easy win, easy cover, relax, everything's going to be fine. I think I agree with basically Rob's entire handicap. Number one, if you think you're going to walk to the window and place a plus EV bet on a side or total market for the Super Bowl, you haven't been doing this very long. This is a sharp number. Rams -4, I think, is what all of us would have made it fair before we even knew that this was going to be this matchup. So, not a huge edge on the side. Total is a little high for me, and realistically, I just, going to Rob's points, the idea that the Rams defensive line really does dictate in this matchup and keep, create a game state where this feels more like the Titans Bengals game, feels more like a little bit of a grind. I mean, weirdly, the Bengals have been absolutely evaporating clock this entire postseason. They go on these drives that just utterly wipe out any clock at all. So, this could be a little bit more of a grind. So I see a lean to the under here. If I didn't have any kind of a Rams future, I probably would be looking for a money line price on the Rams, like Rob was kind of laying out. I'm in this almost the same ballpark of what I think fair is on the money line for them. That in the back of my head, I've been almost certainly trying to make the case for the Bengals all week this week. There's not a lot of people that that are in the sharp handicap community that we talk to that I've really heard make a reasonable case for the Bengals. And I guess if I'm trying to make that case, I'm looking at specifically the Bengals defensive matchup against Matt Stafford and the idea that, Matt Stafford can you can take them out of this game. If Stafford is making, multiple mistakes, particularly in his half of the field, giving the Bengals short fields like Mahomes and the Chiefs did in the second half of that game, in Kansas City, then this will be a game that comes down to the final moments and who has the ball last. And of course, you have to lean in favor of special teams for the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of their ability to convert an especially long field goal that may be, pretty impactful in terms of the final result if this is a one-score game. I look at the way that the Stafford's strengths fit so perfectly with what the Bucs wanted to do defensively in terms of they are aggressive. They come at you with all of their guys. They leave their cornerbacks and safeties on an island. Stafford absolutely preys on that type of defense. And what the Bengals have been doing, particularly in the last second half adjustments that they made against Mahomes, was exactly the opposite of that. They only rushed three. They didn't care about trying to generate pressure, and they just have 8 guys roving, kind of taking up space in the secondary. And I can see a world where Stafford gets frustrated by that, and he's throwing picks. And this is a kind of a ball hawking unit in general. So if I'm sweating Rams, I'm literally just hopeful that I would take a punt over a turnover in Rams territory, honestly. And I think this is going to be a little bit of a grind of a game. The Bengals are going to invite the Rams to run. That plays into Sean McVay's kind of worst tendencies in terms of how he goes about calling a game. So and if this was a more formidable foe in terms of if I had more respect for Zach Taylor as far as a master of crafting a game plan. If I had a little bit more respect for Joe Burrow in terms of he has experience, he's been here before, he's kind of done it on this stage, then I think I'm probably making a case that the Bengals are the side here, just on the basis of the Rams kind of, having a couple of matchups that I don't love and a coach that has not shown to be able to kind of navigate a high leverage in-game situation especially well. All that said, if you stack up these two rosters, anything player level, anything matchup based, you can't help but tick all the boxes in favor of the Rams just based on their, who they have available. They're at relatively full strength here. A clean game from them at home is a reasonable expectation. And in that universe, I actually see long tail to Rams covering by margin. I can't see a game state where really the Bengals dominate and win, by more than one score. But there are plenty of game states where the Rams kind of pull this thing out and win, with multiple score margin. And so, I guess in that ballpark, if you're going to look at the totality of what could happen in this game, and you're saying you have to take a side, the idea that because it's skewed, distribution is skewed to Rams blowout, I think that would probably be where you bet.
Yeah, you could potentially play a couple of vaults, of course. Plenty of those alternative handicaps at Matchbook.com. So before we head into prop territory, what are you thinking of this one, mate? I don't know. I don't think you've bet it, just following you on your own Slack channel. But in terms of if you had to have a bet, of course, we'll never force you, Suma. But if you had to have a bet, where would it be?
I would probably lean with the guys towards Rams money line. Just because I don't see a lot of scenarios in which the Bengals win straight up. And both guys made some excellent points. There's not a lot to add, but I have looked at both profiles of these quarterbacks this week, and it's pretty interesting that both over the course of the season have played the, I would say, same style of offense, because both quarterbacks have been excellent against the blitz, and really, really excellent. Yeah. Matthew Stafford is averaging 0.56 EPA per pass attempt against blitzes and a passing grade of 88.2. And Joe Burrow is averaging 0.43 EPA per pass with a passing grade of 92. This is really absurd. Both guys are also excellent from clean pockets. That's what you would typically expect from quarterbacks who reach the Super Bowl. But if those guys have struggled over the course of the season, it's been against non-blitzes with defensive lines that can apply pressure on them. So both are, let's say, stylistically this year almost the same quarterback. So the matchup really comes down to which defensive line can take over that game and which offense will find more answers to that. And I mean, we will always arrive at the Rams being or having these superior matchup in the trenches. If you just take a look at the Bengals offensive line, Jonah Williams, Quinton Spain, Trey Hopkins, Hakeem Adeniji, Isaiah Prince. I mean, it's one of the worst pass protecting units in the league. So Aaron Donald and Von Miller, this unit just simply cannot block Aaron Donald and Von Miller. So the Bengals have to find any kind of offense that plays away from it. Get the ball, put the ball in Joe Burrow's hand, get it out very quickly. Jamar Chase will probably see some decent coverage from Jalen Ramsey. So I'm looking for an offense from the Bengals where Joe Burrow gets the ball out quick, maybe lots of empty protections with some chips on the edges from tight ends and maybe some running backs, and then just try to get out the ball underneath to T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, maybe some CJ Uzoma if he's going to be healthy enough to play. And that's probably the path for success for the Bengals. And on the other side, Matthew Stafford has struggled against defenses that only rush for and get pressure. And the Bengals on paper have this exact style of defense where they don't rush a lot, a very low blitz frequency, play a lot of zone behind it. Matthew Stafford has killed man coverage this season. He has struggled against zone kind of bit. And the Bengals play the style of defense, but the Bengals don't have a great defensive line to really disrupt a lot of pockets in front of Matthew Stafford. Their best pass rusher, Trey Hendrickson, I would call him the only great pass rusher on that unit, he plays against Andrew Whitworth on the right side. He barely moves around, so that's a very tough matchup for him. And then the rest of the defensive line, DJ Reader, BJ Hill, Sam Hubbard, I just don't see how the unit gets enough pressure. And if they don't get pressure, it doesn't really matter which coverage you play behind it. Sean McVay and Stafford will probably find enough open routes to get some points on the board. And I think this will be the difference in the end.
Just before I come back to you, Rob, PFF had a pretty good stat. The last three playoff games, Stafford has only had 3 turnover-worthy plays, where in the last 3 regular season games, he had 3 a game. So I think that's always worth noting as well. I think the Bengals need to turn the ball over at least twice here. Rob, you were going to come back there, man.
Yeah, so I don't want to disparage Joe Burrow in any way, because I actually think Joe Burrow is a great quarterback.
Yeah.
I do think maybe he's being a little bit overvalued or overrated relative to the numbers that he produced this season. But if we just take the Cincinnati Bengals, and if anyone at home wants to do this exercise and just literally go through their entire schedule this year and say, was this an above average defense that they played or a below average defense? You're going to find maybe 4 or 5 above average defenses. And then when you actually go deeper into those games, the Bengals struggled to move the ball in every single one of those games. Like their offensive outputs in games where they played above average defenses. I'm including the Bears for one, because the Browns, who are above average in EPA and DVOA, 49ers, the Titans in the playoffs. Like that's pretty much it as I'm looking at their schedule in terms of quality defenses that they faced this year. And their offensive outputs in those games were all bad. So again, I don't want to, that might not be predictive of what's going to happen here, but this is by far the best defense that they're facing in a long time. It's just a huge step up in class. And I think people are really basing their opinion of the Cincinnati offense off of playing what was essentially the easiest schedule of opposing defenses this year in terms of EPA per play. So that's something to consider as well, because we just haven't seen the Bengals play that many games against this caliber of defense.
Sommer, jump back in.
Yeah, I think Ben Baldwin tweeted it yesterday. Out of the last 22 Super Bowl teams, the Bengals have the 3rd worst offense by EPA per play. Only the 2012 Ravens and the 2015 Broncos with an aging Peyton Manning had a worse EPA per play up until the Super Bowl than the Bengals this year. It's a very low floor, high ceiling offense. If Joe Burrow is cooking and they let him cook and he hits a few deep bombs to Jamar Chase, that offense has been rolling. But other than that, they've been very inconsistent. They couldn't really run the ball. They had a lot of issues really moving the ball consistently.
Part of it is the play calling as well. We've talked about the Bengals a lot on this Matchbook pod this year, and the early down running, which has been an issue for them overall. Like, to piggyback on Drew's point, if I had more faith in Zach Taylor as a head coach, I'd probably make a decent argument for the Bengals here, because I think there's a path where they could come out in this game, spread the field, get the ball out to the receivers very quickly, run some screen passes on offense, and really disrupt what the Rams are going to try to do on defense and really get the ball into the playmakers' hands quickly. Do I have any faith in them being able to do that? No, I think we're very likely to see them come out and hand off to Joe Mixon on 1st and 2nd down and have Joe Burrow just try to complete these 3rd downs like he's been doing all playoffs. But I think that's just unsustainable over a longer period of time, and especially against a good defense who, like I said, has the best pass rush win rate in the entire league. So I think coaching definitely plays a factor here, and that might be a hidden advantage for the Rams in this one.
Yeah, I don't know how hidden it is. I think people
Well,
definitely know the edge there. Yeah. So there you go, Drew. Your beloved Rams, long-suffering Rams. It's the greatest show on turf. They're back.
I mean, based on this show at this point, it sure sounds like nobody believes in the Bengals. Don't want to. Yeah, I mean, this is.
We've had a few times this year where we were unanimous. I think on. I mean, this isn't really. We're not even the Rams to win this game. We're just kind of all making arguments for the Rams. But we've had a few unanimous. I think for the most part they've worked out in our favor. But I think there was one really bad stinker at one point this year.
Yeah, I don't remember that. I'll tell you what. I know, because like we're all basically saying the Rams have 65, 67-ish% chance to win. That's meaningful in a Super Bowl. Like, this is the end of the season. These are supposedly our best teams in the in the NFL, and to
Right.
say one has a 65% chance to win, like a lot of things have to be in their favor, and so I think you're just kind of getting that general reflection. Ultimately, a lot of this comes down to like individual player performance on Sunday. Like there's been a lot of games where it's been decided by somebody you didn't even have really on your radar before you come into Super Bowl Sunday. And for what it's worth, there are plenty of guys on the Bengals that would, potentially qualify for that. So, it's still, they play, the general axioms, the general, cliches all kind of apply, I think, in this game. And, there is a game state where this comes down to who has the ball last. And if that's the way it goes, the Bengals have a better kicker. And I don't think you can completely rule that possibility out.
I'll get to your kicker bet in a second because we always have to have at least one kicker bet. We have 3 props each. That's me, Drew, and Rob. So we're going to have Suma vote on each 3 what the best of those 3 are. First one we'll bring up the screen. Rob, this is your one. It is Bengals under 87.5 total rushing yards, 1.81 minus 123. Rob, I presume there's a lot of this reliant on game script that they get behind, obviously. But I'm not going to play devil's advocate, but I have seen Zach Taylor still commit to the run even when they're 14 behind, and that's got to worry you something.
It does. So usage for the Bengals is what worries me the most about this, even if they're trailing in a game. With that said, I do not think that they're going to be very successful running the ball. Again, we talk about where the biggest mismatch is in this game of anything on the field, Rams D-line versus Bengals O-line. The Rams have a very good run stop win rate. I believe they were number 1 in the league as well in run stop win rate, as well as pass rush win rate. So their defensive line is that good, whereas the Bengals O-line cannot hold up. So I do think that early on, the Bengals will be run heavy. I don't think they will find success. I think they will get into a game state where they are likely to have to throw the ball. What actually worries me the most about this prop, Sully, would be Joe Burrow's legs later on in the game. If he has to scramble to pick up, 15, 20 yards on a third down or something. Aside from that, I don't like the Bengals running backs to pick up yardage here. So I think this is a pretty decent edge. I would price this number 87.5 closer to minus 135, minus 140. So decent size edge for me.
All right, Drew, take it back to field goals there. Evan McPherson, Bengals to make the longest field goal. It's good to 1.74, 135 for you.
Yeah, this is not especially complicated handicap. I think Matt Gay is still carrying whatever injury he suffered at the beginning of that Buccaneers-Rams divisional game. His attempts have been quite poor from distance in both the last 2 playoff games after succumbing to that injury. And so if I'm McVay, I'm probably not even trotting him out there to attempt an especially long field goal. McPherson is exactly the opposite story. He has been so clutch, particularly from 50 plus this season, this playoff run, especially. I would expect that, that Zach Taylor and company give him some opportunities. We didn't really talk about the Bengals red zone offense, but the Bengals are much more of a team that I'm concerned moving the ball from 20 to 20 than a team that I'm really sweating in the red zone. And a lot of it comes down to what Rob mentioned. They don't have to rush on 1st and 10, 2nd and 9 on their own 25. It could happen, it will happen likely when they're kind of when the field gets shorter. And in those scenarios, if they get sacked, if they long third downs, they're asking Joe Burrow to do something heroic. He takes a sack. Evan McPherson trots out and hits a 47-yarder. I think that pretty much clinches it. In general, I think Evan McPherson has a much bigger role in this game than Matt Gay by a long shot. And, I think to make the longest field goal, I caught this when it was closer to about even money, and I about fell out of my chair that they hung that price. I think this is relatively decent bet on the board still. And as mentioned, good to about 1.74.
Yeah, as you kind of touched on there, Rams may not even kick a field goal. So, if it's a 21-10 game, we move on and you win that. My first one, OBJ. Remember that guy? Over 62.5 receiving yards. Come on, big time towards the end of the season. And again, this is a bit narrative based in the fact that Awuzie is going to pick up Cup. All attention is going to be on Cup there. That obviously opens it up for the 2 and the 3 receiver. If Eli Apple picks him up, I think there's a definite edge there for OBJ. 62.5. It isn't that much. You've got, like I said, an average of 9 targets the last couple of games. I think the last game he went under 5 targets was 4 targets against Arizona, but game script there, they're running the ball a lot. So, look, I think that's not a bad one. 62.5, it's a pretty low number at the moment. I think that's going to climb. Rob, just on those ones, though, I mean, like, you know this from years of experience in the past, it is generally kind of not such a great thing to take overs with these, receiving yards and rushing yards, because they are inflated for the Super Bowl in terms of the handle they get.
Yes and no. So I'll clarify. Okay. Bet if you're going to bet an over, it's fine. Just bet it early. So, get your overs in early, because all these numbers are going to move up. That's just, and if you like an under, honestly, just wait till Super Bowl Sunday. You're going to get a better number. That's always the case every year, because this is one of the games, like Sully mentioned, where the public betting actually has an influence on the handle. So everyone who's betting Super Bowl is going to be betting overs for all these players. If you do like an over, that's fine. It's not necessarily a bad bet. You just got to bet it early. Don't bet it on Sunday. If you bet it on Sunday, not saying you can't win, but you've done yourself a major disservice.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some really good guys to follow on Twitter, as well as these guys, Rufus Peabody, Joe Ignish, even the likes of Will Brinson. These guys are good, but there's a lot of Mavericks out there in your space in the Atlantic, across the Atlantic now, Drew, that I wouldn't take too much notice of.
I was with Will last night at the Lakers game, and I drank him under the table. So I don't think you're going to be seeing Will until at least lunchtime today.
Yeah, there you go. You're the harder working guy. CBS won't get him out of bed. Yeah,
Drew told us he was actually the first one in this morning to the studio. He actually slept there overnight. He just went straight there from the bar and woke up.
We're right next to the Crypt, the Crypto.com arena, which formerly Staples Center. So it was easy to walk right on over after late night out.
There you go. Sumat, first of our trifecta. Let me cast a vote. Would you take the Bengals under 87.5 total rushing yards? Would you take Drew's longest field goal? Look at that, 1.74. Very, very fun. And OBJ, I don't think you're going to take that one. I don't think the player props interest you. But of those 3, which one would you take?
So first of all, I don't know whether that's some bias right now for me, but I kind of like all 3. So
come on, man. Come on. Pick a favorite. Come on.
Okay, I think I'm going to go with Drew's with McPherson over. I think followed by Rob's and then yours at 3.
Yeah, that's all right.
However,
it's good to know.
It's pretty close.
All right. One question here from a guy we've had on the podcast. Has been on the podcast at different times with you guys. Our own Jesse May. First quarter unders have always felt like a Super Bowl banker for a number of years in a row. Very conservative early game plans. Is that Super Bowl or team specific? Hands in the air. Who wants to take this one? Because this has been a bet with the Patriots every year. We're backing out at 10.5. True.
Yeah. We've had phenomenally entertaining Super Bowls where 60 points were scored and it was still 0-0 at the end of the first quarter. Like, there is something certainly about the energy, the atmosphere, the way the defensive players come out, particularly running hair on fire type of effort early in these games, that I think matters. Nerves for the offensive players, certainly. Nerves for the quarterbacks, certainly. Realistically, SoFi Stadium, where this is being contested, is loud. It is a very, very loud stadium. It did not matter that the Rams were the home team against the Niners. There was still ample crowd noise even on their offensive possessions. So the likelihood that basically this is even in a neutral setting, even in sort of the corporate weirdness that is a Super Bowl crowd, I can entirely see a scenario where the noise is a factor early in this game. We also have, what else we have going for us for a first quarter under? McVay and Zach Taylor wasting early downs and opportunities in this one.
It's called establishing the run, Drew. You've got to go with it, man. It's establishing the run. It's very, very common. You just have to do it. Or you don't win Super Bowls if you don't establish the run. Hey, Rob, question from Connor Hartnell, which leads quite nicely into your next prop bet. I bet each quarterback's first pass to be incomplete or an interception at plus 205 for Stafford and plus 210 for Burrow. Favorite prop look in the book. And Connor, it's good news for you, sir, because there you go, Rob. Take it away.
Yeah, so I like the Joe Burrow one a little bit better than the Matt Stafford one. Again, it's going to sound like I'm hating on Burrow for this entire podcast. That's not the case. I'll just walk you through it really quickly. But
All right.
the Cincinnati Bengals are a very heavy first down run team. They're 4% rushing over expected over the course of the season. The likelihood that Joe Burrow faces a 3rd and long, in my opinion, is high. I think we might get a first down, 2nd down run for Cincinnati, but regardless, they're probably facing a 2nd and long or 3rd and long in this type of situation with, again, a team where I would expect Burrow's completion rate to be lower than other teams in the league just because of the pressure that he will be under for the majority of the game. Overall, don't mind taking both of them, both Burrow and Stafford, because I think a lot of people just generally think that, oh, it's the Super Bowl, they're going to script an easy pass for the quarterback early to get them in their comfort zone. We actually don't see that all that often. It's just kind of a narrative that's been developed over time. But particularly with Joe Burrow, I think it's very likely first down run for the Bengals. And then we see a 2nd and long or 3rd and long, which is traditionally harder to complete than because it's an obvious passing down. In a lot of those situations, defense is playing the pass. So that's kind of just it's a great price, plus 190. I think it's really, really good. That's been bet down a bit, as Connor mentioned in the comments.
Yeah.
But that's basically the handicap on that, where you're more likely to lose that prop, but I think it's a very valuable bet.
Hey, Drew, next one, Joe Mixon. I know you bet this at 26.5, but just for the interest and clarity and fairness, it's 28.5 in Matchbook. But good odds against the 2.3 or plus 130. What's the case?
I am looking.
Oh, you got it.
Oh no, I'm
unmuted.
unmuted. No, I was trying to compose my thoughts. The general thesis here is not especially complicated. I think the Mixon's role in the passing game has expanded as we've gone deeper into the season. If you look since Christmas over the last 5 games, Mixon is being targeted almost 6 times per game. That is a far cry from what we saw earlier in the season, where he had a very limited role in the passing game. He was picking up 1 or 2 targets per game for a huge swath of the season, and I think that is kind of skewing things a little bit low on what he is expected to do from a passing standpoint, from a receiving standpoint in this contest. And then as good as the defensive line is for the Rams, they do have some leaks in their ability to tackle at the second level. You saw it with kind of the broken play to Deebo Samuel in the NFC Championship game. We've seen it at times where if you're in the second level, you can kind of really make the Rams hurt a little bit. And I would expect that Joe Mixon in general, they look to utilize him in the screen game to take a little bit of the pressure off of Joe Burrow. We saw them employ this strategy specifically against the Titans when they were under massive duress from the Titans D line. So Mixon to get something in the ballpark of 6 or 7 attempts, targets in this game, I think is reasonable. And if he does get those attempts, then I think 4 receptions for 30 yards is about fair for him.
All right, yeah, like the case. Do not dislike that. And anyway, my next one, I'm sticking with Rams. I'm going to take an under here. Now, just for the interest of clarity again on this one, this has been bet down on many shops, but we still have it at 68.5. I would play this down to about 62.5, and it's Cam Akers under. Since he's come back from injury week 18, he hasn't really done much. Now, there's 2 worries with this. Game script, obviously, to get ahead, he's going to get more carries. However, and also the worry is that generally McVay will stick with running back, but I do think Sony Michel will pick up enough carries here. 68.5 at 1.7. Again, I bet this down to 62.5. You can get even money. It's a very solid bet. Furthermore, that Bengals run defense isn't awful. It's ranked against yards per run. I think it's about 8th, giving up about 108 on the season. And again, factor in there in the AFC North. They have to play the Ravens twice, the Browns twice, and even Steelers, it's not a bad one either. So I think this is a good bet. And again, if you're looking at this is what is up at matchbook.com on Wednesday afternoon. I would suggest this probably goes off about 61.5, 62.5, which I think is fair enough to pay it down to about 62.5. All right, Suma, of those 3, come on, pick one here. Let's recap. Joe Burrow, first pass of the game to be incomplete or intercepted. Mixon over 28.5 receiving yards, or my one. Akers under 68.5 rushing yards.
Give me your Cam Akers under.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. That's
He
great.
had to make up for leaving you in the 3 spot last time.
Yeah, he had to, and he's probably also conscious, Rob, of who books the guest for next season as well.
Exactly. That's what
And
I was
if there's
getting
any
at.
draft special in April, and he knows if I'm coming to Munich towards the end of the year, the beer is going to be on me. Hopefully it's Oktoberfest, so we'll try to arrange that.
Oh,
as well.
that would be epic.
That would be pretty epic. Absolutely would be. We'll expense those soon. We'll be fine. All right, Rob, back to you for your next prop there, sir. What have we got? You're picking on this guy today, and we love smoking Joe Burrow, but over 0.5 interceptions is 1.77 minus 130 against a pretty ball-hawking Rams defense.
Yeah, so we recorded a Circles Off episode yesterday that Drew and Suma were a part of. We had on dozens of guests giving out their best prop bet. This was one that Dr. Ed Fang gave out as his best one, and I loved the logic for it, and more I started thinking about it. But just to give some background, Ed Fang, Stanford PhD, very, very, very smart guy. I have been reading a lot of his stuff about interceptions over the course of the years. He was the guy who famously called the Carson Wentz downfall, saying this guy is not good. He's just getting extremely lucky. And he made a case for what he calls bad balls and how they're heavily correlated to actual interception rates. And what we're seeing with Joe Burrow is he's actually amongst the league leaders in terms of bad balls this year. Part of the reason why it hasn't manifested into a lot of interceptions is, again, very bad secondaries that they face for the most part. And on top of that, the quality of receivers as well. So throwing balls that are maybe not great in one-on-one battles and the receivers are able to come down with it. This is a much tougher secondary. He's going to be under pressure a whole lot longer in this game. So you have the possibility of deflected balls at the line of scrimmage, which I think increase a whole lot, which increases interception probability. And also just the fact that he's going to have to make decisions a lot quicker, which I think increases interception probability. And then you add in the fact that the spread is telling us this, not me, that they're likely going to be in a state where they're trailing for a large majority of this game, or at least for part of this game. And he's going to have to throw the ball more. So I actually just think this is a good price. No one is really going to want to bet Joe Burrow over interceptions because he's the golden boy. I think that contributes to this a little bit as well. And conversely, honestly, just throwing out a bonus there, Stafford under half an interception, I think is a good bet as well. It's like roughly plus 130 at Matchbook right now for many of the similar reasons. Stafford's bad ball rate is actually not that high this year. It's actually below average. It's been a little bit unlucky with some of the interceptions that he's been, forced or thrown in these games. They're very likely leading, probably more running in the second half. So I think this is kind of correlated to how I see the game playing out, which is obviously always dangerous. But I think these are good prices on Joe Burrow over, Matt Stafford under.
All right. Drew, give us an MVP bet. Obviously, people gravitate towards the quarterbacks in this market. Tend to.
Yeah, and rightfully so.
But the real regular season MVP, Cooper Kupp, 7.0 plus 600. Still a bit of juice value in that price?
I would say so. And realistically, I think that you have 3 potential MVPs in this one. Obviously, your 2 quarterbacks, and then Cooper Kupp, of course. And part of the reason that I look at this market, and I think you have a little bit of a rare potential for a non-quarterback to win this particular award. You have a lot of kind of the voters. They're ready to give Kupp some awards. Like, they're ready to give this guy some praise. Like, he has put on a spectacular performance over the balance of the season. He's had a tremendous playoffs. Guy is always open. And realistically, over the balance of the season, every game he is consistently getting, into the 9 receptions, 100 plus yards, week in, week out. High expectation that he scores a touchdown in this game.
But Drew, just on that, can I ask, if you were to kind of visualize this as Super Bowl MVP, what would his stat line would have to be? Would it have to be 11 receptions, 2 touchdowns, 140 receiving?
No, you just need Rob's Matt Stafford interceptions under to lose. Yeah,
right.
There's any kind of sloppy game from Stafford in this one. Yeah. One pick makes this starts to feel about 50-50 between those two guys. 2 picks, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, if Cooper Kupp, Rams win, like they're going to find a way to give it to Cup or the defense. And realistically, I think there's some decent daylight here for Cup to be the guy, particularly given Stafford's propensity to turn the ball over.
Also, just to add to Drew's point there, I actually think there's a lot of scenarios where Stafford doesn't even throw a pick and Cup still gets it. We've actually seen a number of games this year with Matt Stafford throwing 2 touchdowns and both of them went to Cooper Kupp. I think in that instance, Kupp gets it. And on top of it, this is a voting. 20% is a fan vote, which are going to be heavily skewed towards Kupp because most of these people have Cooper Kupp in fantasy or have watched the fantasy numbers this year. 80% is media vote as well. And I think that there's like a media narrative around Cooper Kupp as well because he was, in the MVP conversation. So I think that, I think this is a good bet. Even like there's a lot of scenarios where Kupp gets it. Even a Stafford 3 touchdown game, but it's 100 yards and 2 TDs for Kupp. There's a very realistic scenario that he wins that over Stafford.
Yeah, and look, Cooper Kupp has got so much sentiment as well. I think it's important, like what you said there, Rob, that it is fundamentally a popularity contest when it is anyway. Even small bit late to the party with your ones, but I'm not going to lie. I came at this T. Higgins one from a different angle, but I just think Higgins, look, it's a lot of yards, 70.5, but he's getting so many targets the last couple of weeks. And for whatever reason, for me personally, I do like looking at the 2 and the 3 receivers with the player props. But I've got them wrong with Boyd and Higgins. Higgins has come on big time in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so Higgins was also targeted. So I think we usually think of T. Higgins as this big body outside receiver, but he's also seeing lots of targets over the middle of the field.
Yeah.
We saw it against the Titans, for example. And when the Bengals face teams or defenses this year that were below average at defending the middle of the field against the pass, he had like 15 targets against the Ravens, 13 against the Ravens, 14 against the Chargers, 6 against the Jets, 6 against the Lions. He got a lot of targets against the Titans. I think it was 10 when the Titans were sacking Joe Burrow 9 times. He had to get rid of the ball very quickly. And I can also see a scenario this time where there's so much pressure from the Rams defensive line. Jamar Chase might get covered or might draw a lot of coverage from Jalen Ramsey that Joe Burrow simply has to go to T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd over the middle, CJ Uzoma, but Uzoma might not be 100%, so we might even see a few more targets towards Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins. And if T. Higgins goes into the 6 to 10 target range and maybe sees 1 or 2 deep targets when he's lining up against Darius Williams on the outside and Joe Burrow tries to hit one down the field, I think there's a good opportunity for T. Higgins to have a game where he goes like 6, 7, maybe 8 receptions for like 90 yards.
All right, look, I'm just basically going to piggyback on that. I will say I had this in earlier in the day, but I won't lie. You actually planted the seed with your preview on your Slack channel, so I'm definitely giving you this. It's a different way in. 5.5 receptions. It's actually quite a high line if you look at the average wide receivers ones. You're probably looking at about 4.5. But again, if you believe in the game script that they're behind, and like you said, they're playing passes over the middle and don't 5.5 reception isn't a lot, and it's 2.08 plus 108 at matchbook.com. There are 10 props there, guys. If you're watching this back, you may not remember them, but check out insights.matchbook.com. I'll give you a full recap there about 2 or 3 hours post-recording on Wednesday, and it's a pretty handy one place to shop to go to on Sunday when you're rattling through these props. You can't remember them. You can check it out there. Before I get to the best bets of those guys, I just want to tell people about the sign-up offer we have for the Matchbook NFL podcast just for you guys. If you're trying to get involved in the Super Bowl this weekend, you like any of those props, check out matchbook.com. Use the bonus code NFL20, bet 20, get 20. And chances are we may have more than 1 or 2 bets. Rob Pizzola, my producer Daniel, is asking me, how many bets are you placing? Prop bets are you placing on Super Bowl 56?
It'll be this is probably the most of my lifetime. For one, I'm typically not a huge prop better.
Is there a kind of a reason for that, Rob? Is there kind of inefficiencies in some of these markets that you spotted?
There's access to so many different sports books nowadays relative to what it used to be. So I could literally pull up, 30 books and just pick off prices. I'll have over 100 prop bets on Super Bowl. I'm
surprised that none of these books are starting to limit Rob Pizzola.
Oh, they are. But if you're limited at a sports book, let's just say there's workarounds that you can. There's alternative methods to get bets. That's all I'll say.
Yeah.
I got to ask so Rob, the prop king here, I got to ask you, man, who's behind this Anthem overs team? Who's doing this and why? Like, I can't understand why the Anthem over is getting steamed like this. Is this a dummy head fake move?
What's
and
the
big
what's
money's
the
coming in on the under? What's the deal? I'm seeing like 105 at some places, 105 seconds. And you look at the YouTube clips of Mickey Guyton, and she's like in the 80s. So somebody's betting this over like they know the result. And I don't know why that is.
I will say, as someone who's bet the Anthem for many years, and I'll just be very upfront with, I wasn't betting on an educated guess type of thing. We don't really know what the Anthem rehearsal times will be till later in the week. They haven't happened yet. Typically, that's as soon as those rehearsal times happen, you see the market just
Saturday,
go nuts. Yeah, for you it's Saturday, for me it's Friday. But it goes absolutely nuts. So I don't think there's any information that's known yet. I think Anthem times are typically long, like they're typically around 2 minutes. This is a very short one, so maybe there's someone there who's just taking a guess. I don't know what it takes to move this market. All I know is that I don't believe that there is known information yet.
And you can be rest assured you will not be able to back that market at matchbook.com ever. As long as I'm here. Yeah. All right, the best Super Bowl bets of those ones. Rob, kick us off. What was your best one there, bud?
Joe Burrow to throw an interception. I mean, I think this should be priced more than minus 130. I think there's a lot of scenarios where they're trailing. They need to throw. This ain't a I'm taking a sack on fourth down, Andy Dalton type of situation. It's the Super Bowl. The ball's going in the air, right? You're playing to win the game. So I think the aggressiveness will be there late in the game, and possibly a lucky turnover early on in the game. But I think this is the best of the bunch.
Sommer, you taking Higgins over 70.5? You got to lay that?
Yes, exactly. Let's hope for T. Higgins at least 6 receptions.
There you go. I like it. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Maybe one big play down the field.
Yeah, it's not going to be my best bet, but Drew, what's yours?
I'll stick with the longest field goal Bengals. I'm Evan McPherson fan. The only leak in this one is that they just don't kick a field goal for some reason, in my opinion. So this one should be fun.
Hey, Drew, if you keep on saying it on NBC, it might just get steamed down. So maybe we just stop it now and give the rest of us a chance to maybe get on. Yeah.
What's funny? You do enough media, and you tend to pick one funny one like this that has a good narrative around it, and you say it 200 times over the balance of the week. And once this gets to minus 200, we're coming in on the Rams hot. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely. All right, my one's because Suma gave me the vote of confidence. Cam Akers under 68.5. rushing yards. Like I said at the top, you'll probably see a different number throughout the week. Again, I think it's good up to 61.5, 62.5. I don't see the big run there, and I don't really fancy the Rams running the ball anyway. And I think they'll pass even if they're ahead. I think McVay has learned even from the last Super Bowl, just do what you're good at. All right, guys, it's been an absolute blast throughout the season. Obviously, we had a few very tricky weeks. Maybe week 14 to 18 where we COVID updates and we were barely recording and asking you guys for picks. It was very tough, but I do appreciate your patience throughout the season. Drew, Rob, Suma, it's been an absolute pleasure. To our audience out there, both US, European, UK, and Ireland, thank you so much for sticking with us. It's been an absolute blast. We'll hopefully be back to do some NFL draft specials in the coming months. But in the meantime, the very best of luck with your Super Bowl bets and enjoy the game. Goodbye for now.
Bye.